edition of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And for those that have not tuned in to Touring the AFC South before, of course, this is a weekly show where I come in and talk about the Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts, or the Jacksonville Jaguars. The last couple of weeks, we broke down the schedule of the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. And this week, we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans. Yes, we're going to find some wins for the Houston Texans this week. What we're going to do is we're going to break down their entire schedule, see where they get some wins, where they get some losses, and some things that may make or break their season. But first, we got to do the early hits. First early hit this week, the Tennessee Titans named Mikael Johnson as a scouting assistant. Now, Mikael Johnson actually came to the Titans through the Amy Strunk Women in Football program, which was created by the current Titans head coach Mike Vrabel and general manager John Robinson, which offers intern positions on their staff for women. What they did was brought her in through that, and now through that, she has become the first woman to work full-time in their scouting department. Congratulations to Ms. Johnson. Congratulations to the Tennessee Titans. And good job on starting that program, which I'm pretty sure will continue to keep going as the years go on. And congratulations again to Ms. Johnson. And good job by the Titans for definitely breaking barriers and doing different things within the organization. All right, the second early hit is a big one. The Jacksonville Jaguars announced a $441 million project that will focus on the football stadium renovations and football performance center that will be outside the stadium. Now, more specifically, it'll be outside of Gate 2 of the stadium. Now, this football performance center also includes a brand new 125,000 square foot practice facility housed out in it. It's housed basically in the performance center, which that's awesome. Then you also have where the city owns it, and basically they're going to be just paying for the maintenance, things like that. In addition to the new football football performance center, you also get upgrades to the stadium where it's like, better plumbing, the water concourses, things like that. Also, things that are going to be included in this performance center is public art, public viewing stands, restrooms, concession areas, retail stores, and public meeting space among football operations. A lot of good stuff, but it doesn't end there. The owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Mr. Cohen, is actually putting a Four Seasons in downtown Jacksonville as well as part of, the city renovating and trying to make Jacksonville a better city in terms of aesthetically and just the different things that it has to offer. Now, the $441 million is just part of phase one of upgrading Jacksonville, the football team, and Jacksonville, the city. It ought to be interesting to see how things go as it goes on. There's also a reportedly, kind of redoing the dock area down there and buildings there and stuff like that as well. It ought to be interesting to see what all ends up happening in the next few years down there. But it does show that Jacksonville is committed to being there. Their first upgrade, really, in terms of the facilities and in terms of the football offices and things like that. And all the Jacksonville Jaguars fans that are there, this ought to show you the team is committed to actually being there. So there you go. There's that. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Adam Vinatieri officially announcing his retirement. Now, to me, he is a Hall of Famer. He definitely has done a lot of great things. I mean, an 83% career kicking percentage. You know, he makes 83% of his kicks. I mean, tons of his kicks have been in clutch moments. Can you say anything more about how great of a kicker he's been over his 20 plus years? You know, he definitely is. Definitely, you know, congratulations to him for being able to last this long in the NFL. A lot of people don't make it past 4 or 5 years. So there you go. Congratulations, Mr. Adventary, on his retirement. And that's been your early hits for this week. But now we're to the main event, which is breaking down the Houston Texans schedule. Yes, we're breaking down the Houston Texans schedule, looking to see if we can find those wins in the schedule. Well, I know Houston Texans have had an interesting offseason. I mean, you have the things going on with Deshaun Watson right now, the legal issues there. You have a lot of people leaving. Like, you know, the next person was J.J. Watt. He left and went to Arizona after he asked for his release. You just don't have a wealth of talent there. And then a longtime assistant is now a first-time head coach there. So, gonna be a lot going on. But let's get into this schedule. All right, week 1, they face off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that the Houston Texans were 4-12 last season and were led by Deshaun Watson, who threw for 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, 70.2% completion percentage, and 4,823 yards. But they didn't have any first-round picks to get better because they shipped them all away. And, of course, you know, there's just a lot of uncertainty there. So I figured I'd mention that before I got into the season and kind of gave you what they're going to do this year. All right, as far as Jacksonville Jaguars, they're a rebuilding team in their own right. I told you about the new stadium and all the new things they got going on around their stadium in the city. Well, that doesn't necessarily permeate into the team just yet, in my opinion, in the first week. They travel to Houston. They take on the Texans. And somehow, some way, maybe Tyrod Taylor has a good game. Maybe the Texans get it together and they pull off this win at home. Starting the season 1-0. There you go. Boom, out the blocks. 1-0. Next game, they go to Cleveland. Good thing they're going to week 2 because it can get cold in Cleveland, especially up there by the lake. So that's one good thing for the Houston Texans. Bad thing is Cleveland's a pretty dang good team. If you look at their team, they're probably one of the most talented teams in the AFC, I would say. I know that seems strange to some people to think that the Cleveland Browns can be the most talented team in the AFC, but if you look at their team, you have Myles Garrett on one side, Javis Clowney on the opposite side. You have Odell Beckham Jr., you have Jarvis Landry, you have David Njoku, you have two running backs that almost went for both for 1,000 yards last year as well, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So, yes, they're very talented, and their defense is talented too. So, there you go. And plus, they had the best running game in the NFL, in my opinion, last year. But yeah, let's get back to this game with them against the Texans. And honestly, I don't think the Texans will make it out of this one with a W. Yes, they catch their first loss of the season against the Cleveland Browns, leave them at 1-1. Next game, they go against the Carolina Panthers. Now, the first thing I'm trying to figure out, this game is actually on the NFL Network on a Thursday night. I just don't know who scheduled the Browns versus the Panthers on a Thursday night. But then again, they're there. You have the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers are not necessarily in a great position as well. They do have Sam Darnold, who is trying to resurrect his career in his second stop with the Carolina Panthers after he was traded from the New York Jets. And he does have a few weapons in Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. But do we know who's blocking for him? Do we know if the Texans can get to him? Do we know if the Houston Texans can create enough offense? We're going to see all that in this game and see which team can come out and actually play better and win. And I'll give it to the Houston Texans because they're at home. Maybe the home crowd, things like that, pushes them on towards victory. Starting the season 2-1. Yes, I have the Houston Texans starting the season at 2-1. I didn't stutter. I didn't make this up. That's just what I got. So things are looking great. Looking great for the Texans so far. Week 3, everybody's probably talking about they're a surprise team in the AFC and things like that. Then reality strikes. They take on the Buffalo Bills that next week. Buffalo Bills were a runner-up in the AFC Championship game last year. The only thing they were missing is a running game. If they had a running game, they probably would have won that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, potentially. But we know potential is not reality. So it didn't happen. But we got them taking on the Houston Texans. They're hosting them. Luckily for the Houston Texans, it's not the winter because it gets really cold in Buffalo, New York. It snows everywhere. But bad news again, they're taking on the Buffalo Bills, who are expected to be a Super Bowl contender this year. They take a loss. They move to 2-2. Then they they play with the Patriots. Now, will the Patriots do them a favor and let them win? No, I don't think so. They did already do them a favor and give them their GM, the Houston Texans. But Cam Newton is going to be better this year. He has more weapons this year. The team is getting back players that opted out of last season. And just look at the money they spent on playmakers and defenders. I don't think they're losing this game. No, not at all. Not at home. Houston Texans lose this game. That's 2 in a row. Then they head to the Colts. Now, by this time, around week 6, I would say Carson Wentz has probably got himself good and lathered up and is in a good rhythm with Frank Reich and the reuniting, and it feels so good. Yeah, I did that. I like that song. But anyway, you have Carson Wentz and you have Frank Reich reuniting in Indianapolis. And by this point in the season, he's probably starting to get himself together. The Houston Texans are probably, licking their wounds a little bit at this point with 2 losses in a row. The Colts come out. They do what they need to do in Lucas Oil Stadium. They give the Texans their 3rd loss in a row. Keep that in mind. Then next week, the Houston Texans go to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals could potentially have Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, and A.J. Green lining up at wide receiver. At one point in time, all 3 of these guys were considered the number 1 receiver in the NFL at one point in time. Now, do you think the Houston Texans will have enough to guard those guys? No. Then you have to worry about, just the defense, and you got J.J. Watt out there as well, and Chandler Jones on the opposite side. This ain't going to end well for Houston. I think they're going to take a loss. That would be their 4th loss in a row. Then they go home to take on the Rams. Now, as for the Rams got rid of Jared Goff, and they traded for Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford does have a few things, a few times where you're just like, wow, what is he thinking? But he does throw a pretty football, though. And he does have 2 bad boys to throw to, and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. And they're going to cause some problems for the Houston Texans. And that will be, loss number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. At this point, the Houston Texans are limping a little bit in the season. And it will be on head coach David Culley to kind of get them riled up and rally the troops as they head to week 9 and take on the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Now, this is the game right before the bye week for the Houston Texans, and I think they'll be a little motivated. They think about that long vacation, think about all the losses they took, and this might not be as tough a game as they, as many may think. I look at this game and they can make some things happen, potentially with Tyrod Taylor if he's still in there. Or who knows? There may be somebody else There may be a trade happen that we haven't talked about, but we'll see. But anyways, the Texans may come out, fight, play hard. Who knows? Tua may or may not play well. The Dolphins did lose their starting safety, who was a leader of that defense. They may not be all together there either. Win or lose, those decisions make those win or loss happen. But what I will say is I think the Houston Texans go into Miami and win the game. Yes, I've got them winning the game against the Houston Texans. Against the Miami Dolphins, giving them 3 wins on the year as they go into a bye week. So everybody's happy going into a bye week. Maybe they turn the ship around, things like that. But then reality strikes. Week 11, Titans. That's going to be a loss, and they're going to get to see their own personal boogeyman, a guy by the name of Derrick Henry. You know, that guy that runs for like 200 yards when he sees y'all? Yeah. They're probably not going to win that game. It may be closer because anytime the Houston Texans and the Titans play each other, it's pretty close. They battle for a little bit, and then the Titans have prevailed over the last few times. So that's what we'll probably see. Of course, they need to know where A.J. Brown is for the Titans as well, because he did kind of cut up a little bit on them the last time. So, but nevertheless, that is a loss. I don't see them recovering at that point. By week 12, things may get a little iffy there. They may be, dare I say, trying to tank. Potentially. We'll see what happens. But week 12, they'll play the Jets in New York or New Jersey, if you really know where the stadium is located. And in that game, of course, it'll be pretty competitive back and forth because both teams are still probably trying to find themselves. But in the end, I think that the Robert Saleh-led New York Jets will get the win. And it'll be close, but they'll get the win, and maybe that will help kind of forge the identity of the Jets in that game. Next game, week 13, the Indianapolis Colts come calling again. We're not going to go over that game again because we know it's going to be a loss. Sorry, Texans. I don't want to go over this game again because I do believe it will be a loss. Unfortunately. Then the next game, they host the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seattle Seahawks have been in the news recently about a certain guy that the Titans have been in the news about. His name is Julio Jones. So, imagine Julio Jones and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, those 3 guys all on the same team going against this Houston Texans team. Now, that would be dangerous. That would be dangerous. Oof. That would be I don't know what to say about that one for the Houston Texans, but I will say that if that happens, boy, oh boy, there's going to be some fireworks in Houston that day. But I'm going to keep it as it is. We're going to say that they don't make the trade for Julio. We're going to say it's DK Metcalf and Lockett on the opposite side. Even with that, they still have enough to beat the Houston Texans. Another loss on the board. Then the Jaguars, they'll be looking for revenge in their second time seeing each other. I think at that point, the Jacksonville Jaguars will be better, and I think they get the W over the Texans at that point. Trevor Lawrence will kind of be pretty comfortable at that point and should be trying to finish off the season probably strong under Urban Meyer in his first NFL coaching season. Wow, did I ever think I would say Urban Meyer be coaching the NFL? But that's another story for another day. All right, and of course, after that, they go face the the Los Angeles Chargers at home. Justin Herbert and that myriad of weapons and that defense, you can hang that up. That's going to be an L. That's going to be an L for the Houston Texans. Next up, the 49ers, running the football, punishing defense. That doesn't appear good for the Houston Texans at all. It's another loss. Then you have the Titans, again, to end the season. And yes, that familiar sound of having a loss will be coming for the Houston Texans. Now, if you tally that up, you see a losing streak of 5 games in there, a win, and then you see another losing streak of 8 games. Eight games. Yes, I did call for a record for the Houston Texans of 3-14. Yes, 3-14. It's going to be a rough one. That's what I envision it being. I could be completely and utterly wrong, but that's why I envision it being. But if I am wrong, let me give you 3 things that could potentially make me wrong on my prediction. First thing I'm going to talk about is the coaching of David Cohen. Now, for those that don't know, he has been a long-time assistant in the NFL. He has coached a myriad of different positions and places, and he is finally getting his first shot to be a head coach. Albeit this situation is a little rough one to be your first situation as a head coach. So, with that being said, he may have some tricks up his sleeve. We don't know. That may be something that gets them another win or two. On the other hand, he's an experienced coach, but not an experienced head coach. So some of his decisions may lead to more losses. So that 3-14 can turn it into 2-15, or even, dare we say, 1-16. We don't know. Just throwing stuff out there. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just throwing stuff out there that potentially could happen. Who knows? Second thing, Lovie Smith. For those that aren't aware, Lovie Smith is the defensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. Yes, David Culley brought in the former University of Illinois Champaign coach because he is known for defense. If you don't know he's known for defense, go look at the Chicago teams with Urlacher and Lance Briggs, and then go look at the St. Louis Rams defenses that he put together. That'll tell you he's for real. Now, I'll say this. He hasn't coached in the NFL for a while, and he may have kind of lost his way there. Potentially. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Again. However, he may be able to pull a few things and work with this personnel, because they do have a lot of guys on 1- and 2-year contracts. So either you're going to have guys that are either on their way out, trying to earn another contract, things like that. You're going to have a myriad of different guys in different stages of their careers. And if he can get all of them to pull in one way and make this defense good, he could help the Houston Texans be involved in more games. Could happen, or it could go the opposite way. We'll see when the season gets here. Another one, and I mentioned this while I was going over the games. Do they start to tank, or do they tank? And if they do tank, when? Now, I had them losing from week 11 all the way to the end of the season. Does it happen before then? I don't think it happens before then, but, you have to wonder if, at a certain point in time, are they going to start tanking this season? Do they have first-round picks? Can they figure out a way to move up the draft board if they lose more games? Those are all questions that general manager has to answer, as well as the head coach. And they both have to be on the same page answering those questions, might I add. So we'll see what happens. Definitely is going to be interesting to watch if they are able to win games, or they're not winning games when they decide to kind of throw in the towel in the season, which I don't care what anybody tells you. It does happen. Teams do tank. I believe they do. So those are my 3 things. Obviously, the biggest elephant in the room, the biggest question mark is, does Deshaun Watson play this season at all? And if he does play, or, if he does play, does he play in Houston? Which I don't think he plays another down in Houston. And also, of course, the legal issues that are going on. We don't know those answers there. I'm not going to speak on any of that because it's still ongoing, and, I'm leaving that alone. So There we go. Went over the Houston Texans. 3-14 is what I have them being this year. Went over a few things that could make or break their season. It'd be David Culley's coaching, Lovie Smith's defensive prowess, and do they start to tank earlier or not? Well, went over everything I need to go over with the Houston Texans. That leaves only one team next week. That would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, the team that's got Tebow and Urban Meyer. But I'm sorry, it's not the Florida National Championship team. No, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. But we'll see what happens. I'm sorry. We'll see what happens when I go over their schedule next week. That's my time. I thank you all for tuning in. I'm again your host, Mike Patton. This show is touring the AFC South. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you're listening, thank you for tuning in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, wherever I'm at. And if you would, in any of those places, subscribe so you do not miss this content. Thank you again for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. Just like the number. What else would it be? But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. And also, when you subscribe, go back and listen to the old episodes. I have a few old episodes. May even upload an older episode that has not been listened to on the airwaves yet. Yeah. It may be seen, but it definitely has not been listened to. So, hey, if you got Spotify, Apple, Anchor, check it out. Thank you all for tuning in again. Have a great one. I'm out.